June 23rd, 2016 was by far one of the most traumatic days for the European Union. On that day, almost 52% of British citizens decided that their country should pack its bag and leave the EU bloc once and for all. Of course, Brexit was about to open the Pandora's box of independence from Europe. After all, if the UK could pack up and leave, then why couldn't anyone else?
In the Brexit Party, we love Europe. We just hate the European Union. It's as simple as that.
The point is that since then, more and more countries in the bloc have clashed with Brussels. Two in particular, Viktor Orban's Hungary and PIS's Poland. Nevertheless, the departure of another member seemed out of the question. Until now. Anti-Brussels sentiment has grown in recent years, and we have even recently encountered this.
German far-right leader hails Brexit as model for Germany. Germany's far-right AfD derides EU as failed project.
Now, the unstoppable electoral growth of Alternative for Germany has naturally led to its proposals beginning to be taken seriously. And you can see that right now. A group that, according to the polls, is already the second largest political group in Germany, wants nothing to do with Brussels and the European Union. And yet, this is totally different from what we have seen in Poland or Hungary. Why is that? Because Germany plays in a different league. We are talking about the largest economic, industrial, and financial power in the bloc. The role model, the great reference, and at the same time, the most influential player in the development of the European Union. Without Germany, the community project would simply make no sense. And of course, this has caused us at VisualPolitik to ask a few questions. Could Germany really leave the EU? And how seriously do we have to take the proposal of Alternative for Germany? And could this party be in a position to challenge for power soon? Well, we're going to get into all of this and more in today's video. Fire up your engines and let's get started. Let's see. We always hear Germany is the heart of the European Union. Surely we all remember former Chancellor Angela Merkel setting the roadmap for the entire Union. And although these days Olaf Scholz, her successor, is far from having the same role, let's not fool ourselves. Germany is still Germany. Just taking a glance at the money is enough to understand the weight and influence that Germany has in Brussels. Germany is by far the biggest contributor to the European budget. It makes sense. It is one of the richest members, and by far the largest economy. By itself, Germany accounts for a quarter of the entire GDP of the European Union. You could say that the European Union is a kind of monopoly game, where Germany is the bank. And if the bank leaves, naturally, the game is over. Of course, with this in mind, I think we can all fully understand that an eventual German exit from the EU would be a blow of such a degree that Brussels could never recover. Now, is this really possible? Well, what can I say? At the moment, it does not seem very likely. However, don't tell me that it is not striking that this message is beginning to get through strongly in what, up until now, has been the most pro-European country among the pro-Europeans. In any case, the idea of imagining a Germany divorced from Brussels is far from our idea, but rather that of the Teutonic Party that is rising the most in the polls. I am talking, of course, about Alternative for Germany. But who are they? What exactly does this party stand for? What political potential does it have? Does it really pose a threat to the European Union? Well, VisualPolitik viewers, let's start by getting to know them a little better.
A hot metamorphosis.
Alternative for Germany is a political party that was founded in 2013. At that time, it was driven by economists and politicians who were part of, or at least very close to, the Christian Democratic Union, the UCD, the party which, at that time, held power through Angela Merkel. And so, at first, the AfD advocated, above all, such things as reducing the size of the state, lowering taxes, improving relations with the United States, and strengthening NATO. Its political position was, shall we say, very close to classical liberalism. Its spokesman even publicly presented the British Conservative Party as its role model. At this stage, the attacks on the European model were based mainly on criticism of the countries in southern Europe, and also on the outright rejection of Germany having to take on bailouts, such as the one given to Greece. But apart from that, we cannot say that it was a party we could label as Eurosceptic.
Weil immer der Eindruck erweckt wird, als wäre der Euro das, was unseren Wohlstand begründet hat. Und das stimmt natürlich nicht. Deutschland hat lange Zeit von dem Euro überhaupt nicht profitiert. Wir hatten das langsamste Wachstum in ganz Europa in den Jahren 2001 bis 2007. Ich stimme Ihnen völlig zu, dass Europa ein Friedensprojekt ist. Ich finde, es ist ein außerordentlich erfolgreiches Friedensprojekt.
However, since then, things have changed a lot. As time went by, the more conservative and nationalist profiles gained influence within the party. In fact, in 2015, tensions between the moderate wing and the radical wing of this formation exploded when the sector led by Lucke endured internal rebellion from the more radicalized profiles such as Frauke Petry and Jörg Merthen. The situation was so tense that the party congress had to be suspended several times. But in the end, as you could probably guess, it was the most conservative and radicalized sector that won the day and took control. That victory caused not only Lucke to leave the party, but also along with him, virtually the entire moderate faction left. Of course, when the moderates left the party, Alternative for Germany, or AfD, now untethered, staged a sharp shift to the right, particularly towards alt-right positions. That is, positions strongly focused on nationalist, identitarian, and anti-globalization messages. And so, in Europe, they had to leave the conservative bloc. They were kicked out and join the Identity and Democracy bloc, which is precisely the group within the Euro Parliament, where we can find other deeply Eurosceptic formations, such as the Freedom Party of Austria or the National Rally of France, led by Marine Le Pen. So the question seems quite clear. What exactly does Alternative for Germany stand for today? And why are they winning the hearts of so many Germans? Well, pay attention. As we've already said, the origin of this party was fundamentally motivated by the rejection of the way things were handled in Europe after the global financial crisis of 2008. However, following the alt-right rebellion of 2015, the party has focused primarily on questioning Germany's and the EU's migration policies, as well as its trade relations with the rest of the world. This focus is so intensive that this party's proposals on employment, health, education, energy, and security policies are almost non-existent. Alternative for Germany is gaining many followers thanks to its firm position on restricting access to all those immigrants who cannot meet high entry requirements in terms of income or qualifications. In other words, to put an end to the arrival of irregular migrants or migrants from poorer countries, and to take on the European Union's refugee policy in particular once and for all. And not only that, in recent times, this party has made headlines by starting to argue for the idea of remigration, that is, to implement deportations and mass expulsions in order to expel from Germany all those immigrants who have entered illegally. This line of messaging is what is catapulting them in the polls. Nevertheless, even if she did agree with some of the Brexit arguments on immigration, Frauke Petry, the party leader after the 2015 rebellion, never dared to raise the possibility of following in the footsteps of the United Kingdom. Quite the contrary, she talked about reforming the European Union. Check it out.
From a German point of view, I do not want Britain to leave, because doing that we would, as Germans, lose a very strong partner in reforming the EU. So personally, I'd like them to stay. But
VisualPolitik viewers, pay close attention, because here comes a new turn of events. In 2017, Frauke Petry stepped down as party leader, saying that the party had become too anarchic, to the point that it was impossible to turn it into a credible platform. Her successor was Jörg Merthen, who then began to lead from the moderate wing of the party. But wait a minute, the moderate wing? But weren't they supposed to have left already? Well, yes, but when you're dealing with extremes, there is always a bit of political space to turn the one who was first labelled as radical into a moderate. Such are politics. In other words, when Petry managed to oust Lucke in 2015, the more nationalist wing was supposed to have triumphed. But the problem is that this quickly became the moderate wing, as other sectors of the party became even more radicalized. It was right then that anti-Semitic, xenophobic, and even neo-Nazi wings emerged, grouped in a party line called Der Flügel. By 2020, the situation had reached such a boiling point that the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution announced nothing less than an investigation into this internal faction of Alternative for Germany. Well, the outcome was that when Jörg Merthen stepped down as party leader in 2022, the door was opened for sections of Der Flügel faction to take much more power and control. And yes, we are talking about at least 3 major waves of political radicalization in just 8 years. The question is, exactly how extreme is this party today? Why is it gaining more and more popularity? Well, pay close attention because between Moscow, Kyiv, and Brussels, we are in for a lot of surprises.
Exchanging beer for vodka?
Well, it never rains, but it pours. Suddenly, the war in Ukraine plunged our protagonist into a crossroads. You see, it has been known, at least since 2016, that some party heavyweights have maintained close ties with Moscow. In fact, until recently, the youth groupings of Alternative for Germany made exchanges with Comrade Putin's own party. This proximity meant that a large part of this political formation not only did not declare itself against the Russian offensive, but also pointed the finger directly against NATO and the US as being responsible for what happened. You don't believe us? Then take a look at the statements of the Bavarian branch of this party from back in May 2023.
Bavaria must be a bridge builder between East and West and not support the unilateral interests of Biden, USA, and geopolitics for a selective division of Eurasia. We demand that the Free State immediately start talks, follow the example of Hungary and Serbia, to ensure the secure supply of gas for the economy and households in Bavaria.
For many AfD heavyweights, the war in Ukraine is the result of US expansionism in Eastern Europe. For them, the EU is little more than a lapdog of Washington, bent on breaking the good neighborliness promoted by Comrade Putin. In fact, that is not even the end of it. The truth is that within this party, there are many voices defending a foreign policy in favor of Eurasia, a new foreign policy that prioritizes ties with Russia and China over the historical relationship with the US. However, these premises not only resonate with the AfD's heavyweights, but also, and perhaps above all, with its voters. The proportion of Germans who agree with giving in to Putin's aspirations or of limiting the military ties to Ukraine in the long term is largely made up of Alternative for Germany voters. And it is right here that things start to get tricky, because we are not only talking about the possible break between Berlin and the EU, but about a whole, much broader repositioning of Germany completely away from the West. For better or for worse, the post-Brexit UK maintained its relations with Europe and the US. In fact, as we already saw, Farage, one of the top Brexit ideologues, said in his farewell speech that the problem was the EU, not Europe. However, this possible Dexit has much more dangerous undertones. The rise of the AfD is pushing a good proportion of the political spectrum in Germany towards much more anti-Western positions. But is this really possible? And how much has the popularity of this party grown? Well, pay attention.
Alternative in the long term.
The current face of the AfD has a name and a surname: Alice Weidel. She has been leading the party bloc in the Bundestag since 2017, but it was in June 2022 when she took over the co-chairmanship of the formation. Today, it is she who holds the reins of the party. Weidel is an extremely unusual politician who can help us to understand very well the current nature of this political formation. First of all, her political beginnings were in the pro-market FDP party, and not in the CDU, as was the case with the first founding group of Alternative for Germany. On the other hand, her personal life stands in stark contrast to the premises of several party heavyweights. For example, Weidel is in a civil partnership with Sarah Bossard, a Sri Lankan film producer who lives in Switzerland. The couple has 2 adopted children. Interestingly, this has not limited either Weidel nor the AfD itself from voicing fierce opposition to same-sex marriage, despite the fact that she herself, the party leader, is in a relationship with another woman. She justifies herself by saying that she is in favor of civil unions and that the argument for what she calls other lifestyles. Surprising, don't you think? But such is politics. The fact is that this enormous flexibility between her political and personal life makes it easier for us to understand just how daring Alice Weidel is. Do you remember that some former party leaders had ended up leaving the party because it was considered too anarchic? Well, this is exactly where this young German woman is doing her best. Since 2017, Weidel has declared war on the nationalist ravings that, according to her, have greatly harmed the electoral potential of the formation. Her project is to succeed in tying up up loose ends in order to make it possible for the party to engage in serious debates. You could say that she wants to create a much more monolithic, cohesive bloc with the capacity of reaching a larger public.
Die ist eine Partei des gesunden Menschenverstandes. Wir sind für vernünftige ordnungspolitische Rahmenbedingungen. Wir sind für die Einhaltung der Verfassung. Wir sind ein Rechtsstaat. Wir sind im liberal-konservativen Spektrum. Das ist richtig. Aber die Frage nach der Rechtsverschieberei, die stellt sich durchaus nachvollziehbar, dass man einen Austritt Deutschlands aus der EU erwägt aufgrund der Demokratiedefizite innerhalb der Europäischen Union.
Since 2021, Wedel has been pushing the idea that Germany could leave the EU on the political agenda. But why are the alerts going off right now? Well, basically because, as we told you earlier, the party is shooting up in the polls. In the aftermath of the pandemic, the AfD has seen meteoric growth, especially perhaps thanks to the growing unpopularity of the governing coalition, formed by the Social Democrats, the Green Party, and the Liberals. Now the polls show that Alternative for Germany will become the second largest parliamentary force in Germany. In other words, we are not talking about a party made up of a few misfits. But wait a minute, because the time has come to pour some cold water on this whole story. The AfD's growth in popularity has been mainly due to the disenchantment that other voters have had with their own parties. We are talking about a very heterogeneous and therefore very unstable flow of voters. For example, a July 2023 opinion poll showed that AfD voters were by far the least connected to the party's ideas. In other words, the current popularity of this platform could be temporary and unsustainable in the medium and long term. For Alice Wedel, however, the current situation is a very good starting point. The AfD has gained a strong electoral foothold, particularly in the poorer eastern areas of the country. From there, Wedel has recently commented that her party will work to achieve a majority of its own by the end of the decade. And the truth is that they don't have much choice either. Alternative for Germany knows that it is almost impossible for any party to want to form a co-government with their platform, so they could only come to power with a landslide victory, which doesn't really seem possible. Be that as it may, for now, it's over to you. What do you think of Alternative for Germany? Do you think they can increase their influence in European politics? And will Alice Wedel be the person to tidy up and professionalize this political grouping once and for all? Leave us your answers in the comments and let's open a debate. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to VisualPolitik if you haven't already done so. Thank you so very much for watching. All the best. See you next time.